When a game copies too closely the ideas that inspired it, it's often seen as secondary, a mere copycat. At best, it can be seen as a respectful homage or a clever Easter egg. If I approached Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn, with this mindset, the review would be over in 5 seconds, as the game is literally stitched together from Souls-like elements like one of the early Elden Ring bosses. However, I prefer to look deeper and evaluate whether the game can stand on its own legs, even if those legs are borrowed. As my research has shown, Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn has taken those pieces and created something quite impressive, though not without flaws. Let's start with the obvious: Souls-like genre influences. This is the first aspect that is scrutinized when a game claims this genre. I looked for familiar elements: campfires, Estus flasks, hub worlds, or abandoned NPCs willing to help. At first glance, the game seems to lean only lightly on Souls-like elements. There is no central hub world or NPCs to interact with. Bonfires are frequent, but come in 2 types, and the equivalent of Estus's flask is more indulgent. Weapon selection is limited, and the dynamic action camera is more reminiscent of recent God of War games than Dark Souls. At first glance, Souls-like elements seem sparse, but true homage is paid to the combat system. Combat in Flintlock is reminiscent of Bloodborne thanks to the weapons, light axe and melee firearms. Enemies can be hit with shots, and players are encouraged to boost their attacks, but combat also incorporates elements of other games. You can parry and counterattack like in Dark Souls, and enemies have an extra health bar like in God of War, allowing you to use them to execute or weaken them. The impact doesn't stop there. The game exhibits significant verticality in platforming and combat reminiscent of Sekiro. Shadows die twice. It even includes a long-range sniping mechanic like in Rise of the Ronin. Despite the variety of mechanics, Flintlock has managed to create a combat loop that is both fun and rewarding. There are 3 ways to attack: melee, ranged, and magic. Melee is the most reliable but risky, as it puts you directly in front of enemies and can be blocked by shields. Ranged combat strikes harder at a distance, but ammo is limited and is replenished by melee attacks. Magic attacks are the most powerful but take time to set up and are otherwise ineffective. This creates a rock, paper, scissors style of combat that rewards precise decision-making. The game features a semi-linear map with plenty of nooks and crannies to explore, reminiscent of God of War. Exploration is often rewarded with resources and new gear, so it's always worth taking a side path. These rewards include not only new gear, but also ways to move quickly or increase reputation. Reputation serves as in-game currency earned for your actions in battle. Enemies do not drop a fixed number of souls or runes upon death. Instead, you gain reputation based on the speed, elegance, and flawlessness of your victory. Each hit increases your reputation gain percentage, with different attack styles contributing differently. Mixing attack styles earns a higher score, but a hit ends the streak and increases your current reputation. This system creates a balance of risk and reward in each encounter, encouraging caution and accurate decision-making. The game's platforming is far more dynamic and efficient than any Souls-like I've encountered, with jumps, runs, flips, and double versions of each. Quick movement between bonfires is available from the start, and special platforming elements called rifts help cut down on travel time. This unique dynamism helps Flintlock stand out, but I have to admit that the camera angles sometimes make the game a living hell. Now let's discuss the visuals and sources of inspiration, of which the game has plenty. Flintlock incorporates design elements from Sumerian mythology, colonial Europe, Confederate America, classic fantasy, steampunk, Asian tribalism, medieval Europe, and even science fiction. Despite this eclectic mix, the various influences are seamlessly woven together to create a cohesive and intriguing world from many separate parts. This diversity is also reflected in the narrative and world building of the game, with themes of heroism, loss, divinity, and duty. The characters, including the protagonist and Vanek, while not distinctive, are likable enough to follow and are written well. The shifting themes can be confusing at times, but they never contradict each other and come together in the end. The game's sound is its weak point and needs improvement. The music and sound effects are adequate, but the voice acting leaves a lot to be desired. Many lines sound unnatural, and sound balancing makes characters hard to distinguish amidst the noise of battles. Such is the case with Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn. This combination of different influences and qualities makes it far from perfect, but an appealing representative of the Soulslike genre. The game presents its own innovations and isn't afraid to borrow and improve on inspiring ideas. While it has flaws, it embodies a fraction of everything that is enjoyable about Soulslike. Difficulty is an important aspect of the Soulslike genre that requires careful balancing. While the base difficulty is higher than most other genres, excessive difficulty can make the game inaccessible and uninteresting. Flintlock strikes the right balance by making battles winnable through memorization and precision, rather than relying solely on skill and reaction speed. It is deeply satisfying in its predictability and turns every encounter into a dance of sorts. The map design benefits from the many less traveled paths and settlement release system. This unique exploration and combat mechanic allows the player to liberate settlements under enemy occupation. This requires going through multiple enemy encounters and mini-boss battles. Liberating a settlement unlocks new side quests to increase reputation and some NPCs to talk to and play board games with. Combined with the various landmarks on the semi-linear map, these settlements create a sense of a living world waiting to be rescued. Given the many narrative influences, one might think that Flintlock's world building has already been laid out. However, the variety of themes and aesthetic influences made the game work over time to create a world where all of these themes could coexist peacefully. It's a delicate balance that the game didn't achieve perfectly, but it did an impressive job. While the game mechanics are generally well integrated and mostly responsive, there are still terrible issues that are impossible to ignore. Most notably, the logging of hits on certain player attacks and the completion times of enemy lunges. At times, I couldn't hit enemies at all, even though they clearly overlapped with the hitbox of my attack. This is not just a minor bug, but a serious cause for outrage. Things aren't any better with some of the enemy attacks either. They're served so poorly that they're hard to recognize, and that's just outrageous. Flintlock. The Siege of Dawn is indeed a very ambitious piece of work that attempts to capture the charm and quality of a Soulslike, but at nearly half the price. $35 is a solid amount of money for a game, but considering you usually pay $60 for major releases, this offer looks pretty tempting. Sure, you'll have to put up with lower polish and sound quality, but heck, it's a hell of a lot cheaper, and you still won't be disappointed with your purchase.